All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We're going to do another Rashi from Parshas Vayera in the lead up to Rosh Hashanah. A little bit further on in the laning, we talked a little bit about the beginning of the reading of Rosh Hashanah and the birth of Yitzchak and the name of Yitzchak. Now, fast forwarding a little bit, just to the immediate preamble to the Akedah. This is the end of Perek Chaf Aleph in Bereshis in Vayera. This is right after the bris with Avimelech. Avram Avinu makes a bris with Avimelech, itself an interesting story. And then afterwards, in reaction to that bris, Vayita Eshel Bivershava, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam. That Avram plants an Eshel in Beersheba, and he calls out in the name of God, Kel Olam, the Lord of the world. There's many different angles and interesting facets to this pasuk. First of all, why is this Avram Avinu's reaction to the bris with Avimelech? That's sort of the looming question in all of this. Is that what you would do in reaction to this historic peace treaty? Would you go and plant a tree? Would you go and plant whatever you're planting? Or would you go call out in the name of God? What exactly does this mean? There's another question here of why he uses the name Kel Olam, a very unusual name. It's not a name used anywhere else in the Torah for God. It's certainly different from some of the other names that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called by in various places. Why is it Beersheva? They're in Beersheva. Why didn't he go elsewhere? There's a lot of different questions over here, but those are beyond the scope of the Rashi. We'll just see the two Rashis on this pasuk, which I think are famous. We've learned them before, but interesting and important to continue to repeat, to continue to focus on. First Rashi is discussion of what exactly an Eshel is. Rav Ushmuel. It's a machlokas between these two great rabbis of the Gemara, Rav and Shmuel. Chad Amar Pardes lahavi mimenu peros laorchim baseuda, v'chad Amar fundak laachsanya ubo kol minei machal. One of them says an eshel is a tree or is an orchard of some sort of many trees, and he planted it in order to be able to get fruit to give to his guests who would come and eat in his tent. The other one says eshel is not an orchard or a tree, but rather an inn of some sort. Some say it's an acronym for the inn, Aleph Shin Lamed, Achia, Shatia, and Lina, eating, drinking, and sleeping, which is what you do at an inn. And at that inn, there would be multiple kinds of food for people to partake of. Rav and Shmuel have a different sort of interpretation of what the word actually means, but I think they both come to the same conclusion about what was going on here in the scene. One way or another, Avram Avinu was feeding his guests, whether that means he planted this orchard in order to feed them, or whether it means he created an inn where they could eat the food that he had already. Either way, he was hosting people and giving them food. We do find, in support of the second opinion, that this is not necessarily an orchard or a tree, but rather an inn of some sort. We do find the word vayita, which means to plant, when it comes to a tent as well, not just to trees. So vayita, es ohalehem, you have many different languages like that in the Torah. We have here a pasuk from Daniel, but in the Torah we have vayita, and to plant. So we don't have quite the same expression in English. You wouldn't say I planted a tent, you'd say I pitched a tent, but I think the idea is the same. You're sort of putting the stakes in the ground to erect the tent is the same action sort of as putting a tree in the ground, planting something, planting a tree, planting a tent. So in Hebrew, that vayita is not unusual for a tent or for an inn of some sort, and therefore, even if you go according to the second opinion, the vayita word makes sense here in the pasuk. But as I said, in the end of the day, according to both Rav and Shmuel, Avram does something to enable his guests to eat in his tent. And that really relates to the second half of the pasuk. The reason he does that is with the specific intent of calling out in the name of God. Vayikra Sham al yedei oso eshel. It's not that he did this eshel, whether it's an orchard or an inn, to feed his guests. And a second thing he does there in physical proximity to the eshel is call out in the name of God. No, says Rashi, the two are linked. He makes the eshel specifically for the end of the pasuk, so that through the eshel, whatever that eshel is, he can use it to call out in the name of God. So that he could call out and make that name of God, the God of the world, precious. How did he do that? after they would eat and drink, his guests that came to his tent would eat and drink either because of the orchard or because of the inn. They were eating somehow with him, he was feeding his guests, and after they would eat and drink, he would say, Baruch hu lemisha achalta mishalo. Why don't you consider blessing the person who's provided you with this food? Svurim atem shemishali achaltem. Do you think that it really came from me? Mishal misha amar v'haya ha'olam achaltem. You ate from the creator of the world. Yes, I physically gave you the food. I provided the food here in my tent for you. But really, everything that exists in the world comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you've recognized that it comes from him, then a natural outcome would be to be grateful for that. And if you're grateful for that, you can call out in his name and bless him for that which you are grateful for. Sort of a chain reaction. He makes an eishel to provide food. The food provides an opportunity to have a conversation. The conversation is about how this food came to be. Once you recognize how it came to be from God, you can be grateful. Once you're grateful, you can bless him. That's the chain reaction of this puzzle. And it's very, very logical, but one that is important for us to be reminded of, because it's not just people eating in Avraham Avinu's tent. It's the secret for life and for Rosh Hashanah in specific. It's a day of Malchios. It's a day when we recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his role in the world. That's ultimately what the day is about. So reading this on Rosh Hashanah makes perfect sense. And it should get us to think in the way that Avram got his guests to think as well. It should get us to think about where we get all the gifts that we have in life from, and how everything we have in life is somehow a result of the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should take that opportunity to recognize it and to bless him for it. Wishing you all a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. You too, Rabbi, and everybody.
May it be well.
Thank you, Rabbi.